before the successful Medal of Honor Allied Assault released, 22 members of the production team left to start their own company, Infinity Ward. Applying their principles of authenticity, immersion, and variety to the stagnating World War II genre, they received both critical acclaim and tremendous sales. But their publishers and owners, Activision, had already announced that the title, Call of Duty, would become a multi-platform franchise. And so, before Infinity Ward could even get to work on their sequel, Activision was already calling in reinforcements. The original Call of Duty was released in 2003. Barely a year went by before not one, but two new COD titles were released. The expansion pack United Offensive for the PC and the console-only Finest Hour. Neither game was developed by Infinity Ward, who were busy making Call of Duty 2, for which they doubled their staff. The studio was thus forced to watch other developers take their name and style for a publisher ever hungry for hit titles. Though both games borrowed graphical and audio assets from the first game and paid lip service to the realism and intensity of the original game, both games were considered inferior to Infinity Ward's work, and accordingly, they didn't sell quite as well. But while Finest Hour had released on the top consoles of its generation, Microsoft was already hard at work on its next-gen platform and was on the hunt for killer apps. Its vaunted Halo franchise wouldn't have another title out in time for the launch, and the company wanted a hit shooter on day one. Recognizing the acclaim of the original Call of Duty, Microsoft called them to ask if they'd like to be amongst the first wave of Xbox 360 software. They jumped at the opportunity to expand their user base, only to meet resistance from their own publisher. Activision knew that Infinity Ward could make hit PC games set in World War II. Now the developer was asking to jump to consoles, and they wanted to do it in a modern-day setting. After much infighting, Activision relented on the next-gen console front, but insisted that the game be set in the Second World War. To play it safe, the publisher also decided that it wanted another Call of Duty 2 branded game on current-gen consoles. As such, they hedged their bets and tasked a different studio with creating COD 2: Big Red 1. Following the exploits of the legendary American 1st Infantry Division, the game still lacked the polish and feel of the original game and was not a major success. It did have the distinction, however, of being a Call of Duty title developed by a studio called Treyarch. It wouldn't be the last. The cleverly titled Call of Duty 2 released for the PC on October 25, 2005, and with the Xbox 360 on November 15th. And while the game once again did well on the PC, on Microsoft's new console, it positively dominated. It was the most successful title of the launch by leaps and bounds, doing so well that it ended up cracking the top 20 most sold games of the year. Remember, the game was only released in November onto a console with a far smaller user base than the established PS2 or even original Xbox. The game expanded upon the frenetic intensity of the first game, with its varied mission types and multiple campaigns across 3 continents. It also took a cue from Halo 2 and did away with the health pack system. Instead, after getting hit, all a player had to do was stay out of the way for a few moments before returning to full health. While this did make for faster-paced gameplay, it was considered a fault by those who praised the series for authenticity. Still, with its superb level design and immersive atmosphere, the campaign is to this day considered to be one of the finest in shooter history.
I got you, soldier!
Its multiplayer, by contrast, had quite a few difficulties at launch. It was quite glitchy and suffered from universal lag. But Infinity Ward quickly released a patch that fixed these bugs. With a now smooth-running multiplayer, the 360's best-selling game became the most played title on Xbox Live, a position it held until the release of Gears of War nearly a year later. Infinity Ward had gone from 22 guys in a room to one of the top game developers in the world. And while Infinity Ward had watched other studios make spin-off titles of their baby, they were secure in the knowledge that their major Call of Duty releases were all theirs. But they were about to discover that their baby had grown beyond them. Tune in next time to watch how Activision turned Call of Duty into a one game per year franchise with 2 developers.